again, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good day, good night, good whatever you're watching. Welcome to another episode of Midnight's Edge After Dark. I am your narrator supreme, Mr. Rob Robot Shlomo, coming to you from Shabby Road Studios, the home of the Five Satins who recorded In the Still of the Night. Yes, go look it up if you don't remember that one. Shadoo in the still of the night. Okay, that's 3 cents we owe those guys. And joining me today, as always, is Mr. Tom Connors. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing the best I can, as always, good sir. And yourself?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. We actually had someone ask. He goes, I hope everything's well with me. Everything is well. Had a little minor health issues within the family. But everything's good. I don't like to bring that up, but everything's doing well now. Everything's doing better. That's working itself out. But thank you for asking. Thank you for concern, and good health to everyone out there who is also listening. Without going into too great a detail, like I said, that's what's been happening. But thank you for the well wishes, everyone. And now let's jump right into it. Tom, what does the box office look like for this past weekend?
Some surprises and some not surprises. Let's start at the top. Coco came in at number 1 once again and only dropped 45%. Very good for a movie like that. Made $27 million, bringing its haul up to 110 stateside. Justice League dropped another almost 60% down to 16 million. Didn't even crack 200 million yet.
Really? Didn't crack 200 million yet? Really?
Yes, has not stateside cracked 200 million yet. Of course, it is over 500 worldwide, but as Andre and I pointed out in the podcast the other day, they don't get a lot of that money from overseas, especially China, where it's doing the bulk of its business. So not good for WB. Wonder is doing wonderful for Lionsgate. It held tight at number 3 with 12.1 million, bringing its haul up to 87 million. I guess we could call that the sleeper hit of the year so far, probably. Thor Ragnarok also hung in there, just under 10 million, but it still brought in 9.8 to make its U.S. haul $291 million overall, and I think it's safe to say it will definitely cross the 300 million mark stateside just as it finishes up its run here in the next couple weeks. Daddy's Home 2 came in at 5th place, strong again with 7.5 million. Murder on the Orient Express hit 6.7 for the 6th place, holding it 6th place again with a total haul of 84 million thus far on that film. 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri took a jump up to 7th place with 4.3 million. It did add a bunch of theaters, that of course helps. Lady Bird is hanging in at 8. It's been bopping around the top 10, but it also added a nice chunk of theaters to its run as well. The Star from Sony did 4.8 million to come in at 9th place. Bad Moms Christmas dropped 2 spots from number 8 down to number 10 with 3.3 million. 2 other movies though to mention. Coming in at 14th in only 87 theaters, James Cameron's Titanic, the 20th anniversary edition, did 438,000. So not too bad for a re-release like that. The other one I want to talk about, I wanted to see this weekend, but it wasn't playing anywhere near me because it didn't open wide this last weekend like I thought it does this weekend, is The Disaster Artist, which on a minuscule 19 screens pulled in $1.2 million.
You're tearing me apart!
They're tearing the box office apart because, oh my God, that is insane for that many theaters. Those must have been packed wall to wall. So looking forward to that. I have a good feeling that's going to take the top spot this weekend. I think predictions have it at 30 or 40 million. What do you think, Rob, about the box office overall and The Disaster Artist? Holy cow.
Well, isn't The Disaster Artist really Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder? I mean, get some aloe vera for that burn. But no, seriously. Like I said, I'm just like stunned that Justice League hasn't made 200 million. They're holding out for me. That's what they're holding out for. They're waiting for me to see it before they cross that 200 million mark. So. Yeah,
there's a good, like 100,000 people out there that are just waiting to hear what you're thinking so they can go see the movie. Is that what you think?
They're giving me way too much credit. So But Disaster Artist, this has got a chance to surprise a lot of people. It's one of those Hollywood stories that is, the story of it is stranger than the result. You know what I mean? Like Ed Wood,
Right.
Everybody knows Plan 9 from Outer Space, but the real story of it is a lot more interesting.
Right, or the creator himself, which is the same thing in this instance too. Yeah, I know you're not the biggest Seth Rogen fan and stuff like that, but you know, I have a feeling this is going to be probably one of their best movies they've ever done together.
Yeah, which one's playing the stoner and which one's playing the straight-laced guy this time? I mean,
I just seen it in an interview with James Franco. He directed the film in character.
Oh my god.
To where they had to warn people when they come on the set. It's going to be jarring at first, but...
Did they have to address him as Mr. Wiseau?
I believe so, yes.
Wow.
But I guess he was just that into it that, yeah. And people gave him a lot of praise for it, so we'll see how it goes.
Wow. That's you do hear those stories about certain actors thinking once they get into character, then you have to address them as that person.
First, we're going to hit this one because we haven't had Star Trek news on here in a while. Why? Because the Trek Log, of course, became its own show, and this will be something I'm sure we'll address on the Trek Log, but since the story just come out, and we're another at least a week and a half away from another episode of Trek Log, because we recorded this latest episode, which should be up in the next few days, hopefully by Wednesday, about the Orville, but of course, this story didn't come out in time for us to address it. So we're going to address it a little bit now. Big rumor going around. Quentin Tarantino supposedly hatched a Star Trek idea, and Paramount and JJ are ready to assemble a writer's room. Rob, why don't you tell us about this?
So, the big rumor is Quentin Tarantino has hatched a Star Trek movie idea, and Paramount and J.J. Abrams are supposedly assembling a writer's room. This comes to us from Deadline. Quentin Tarantino's busy, ready to direct his new movie for Sony. Apparently, he has pitched an idea to Paramount for Star Trek. After sharing his idea with J.J. Abrams, who is busy with Star Wars, the plan, according to Mike Fleming Jr. of Deadline, is to assemble a writer's room who will hear Tarantino's take on it, and they'll begin to put a movie together. And if this all works out, Tarantino may direct with Abrams producing. Now, Tarantino is actually a big Star Trek fan.
I was going to say, I was a little worried because I know you're not the biggest Tarantino fan to begin with when I told you this story today. So I was like, oh God, Rob's going to lose his fucking mind. But I was surprised. Go ahead and tell him what you told me.
Like I said, I'm not a big Quentin Tarantino fan. But at the same time, you know, new ideas have to come from somewhere. Really. And
right.
We've seen what Seth MacFarlane could do with Star Trek, really. So why the hell not? So it's got to be better than what we've gotten so far. It's true. Take a look at what our representation of Star Trek is currently. Okay?
Oh, shit.
Fuck it. Give the keys to Tarantino. So apparently, according to TrekMovie.com, Tarantino had an idea, and he mentioned the TNG episode Yesterday's Enterprise. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with that, it was pretty much just a time shift episode where the Enterprise C came through a rift in space, and the fact that it had survived an attack by the Klingons caused all sorts of changes in the timeline. The Federation was currently at war with the Klingons. It was a more militarized Starfleet, and the only one who really saw the difference or noticed the difference was Whoopi Goldberg's character, Guinan. But at the time, Tarantino said he wasn't really banking on it, but he had this idea that stemmed from that. Whether or not that means it's going to take place post-Nemesis, after Nemesis, but Jim Giannopoulos had said at the time he was not happy about J.J. Abrams directing another Star Wars movie. And like I said, new ideas have to come from somewhere. So why the hell not? Really?
So let's put on our speculatory hats for just 2 seconds. Do you think then that means he's going to do an updated TNG cast? Do you think he's going to try and rework it into a Star Trek IV Kelvin film? Or do you think he'll try and come up with something original and just use that as a basis for the story?
I think he's going to use that as a basic template, and he will do something with that sort of structure. I'm thinking he might do a whole new cast. And honestly, that might be the best way to go. I don't see him doing anything within the Discovery continuity, the STD continuity, we should say, because STD, as our friend Victor Van Doomcock says, is a disease of the brain. And I don't see him doing anything in the J.J. Abrams continuity. He would want to do the original continuity, but I think he would do it somewhere along the direction of just after Voyager. That is my guess, because he always wants to do kind of his own thing.
Right.
And so he wouldn't want something boxed in by that. He would set it, and he'd say, okay. And he has the clout to say, okay, I'll do a Star Trek movie, but you have to give me X, Y, and Z. You have to give me creative control. Can't second guess me on this, and you're going to have to trust me. Why the hell not? New ideas have to come from somewhere, and they might as well come from Quentin Tarantino.
Right. Well, and if anybody's going to be able to bring butts back into the seats that aren't, your general Star Trek audience, it's Tarantino probably. So it's not a bad idea for Paramount. And I'm sure if they can get it to work for him and he'll do it, they'll definitely be on board. But I think you're right. I think he will do something original moving forward because, like you said, he's not going to want to tie himself too much to anything that would hinder him being able to tell the type of story he wants to tell.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is really you just need the Enterprise. If you think about it, the Enterprise is the main character in every Star Trek series, except for DS9 and Voyager. You have the Enterprise E or F or whatever it is.
That's usually the common thread.
Yeah. And then you'd go from there. I mean, Captain David Chisholm or whatever,
Played by Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Why not? I've had it with all these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking starship. Open up an airlock and blow those motherfuckers out of here.
This is the future, damn it.
Why don't we have some kind of anti-snake ray?
Right? Yes, I want them to die, and I hope they suffocate in space.
Like I said, I think we pretty much said all this for now until the next Trek log. We're waiting on hearing something a little bit more definite. But again,
it is interesting.
It is interesting. Why not? Why not? New ideas got to come from somewhere. If they don't come from Hollywood, they come from Axanar. They come from Tarantino. They come from you and I. Like, new ideas gotta come from somewhere. I know Hollywood is this gigantic circle jerk now where you see the same names over and over, and if you don't believe me, look at the fucking names on Discovery. Akiva Goldsman and Alex Kurtzman have their mitts and everything.
Yes.
So try something else. Try something different.
And if he does direct this would be the first non-R-rated film that Tarantino has done.
Like I say, he's a fan of the original series, so he probably has a good sense of what he can do within that context and how far he can push it. And he's not going to be gratuitous just to be gratuitous' sake. So, but like I said, we'll talk about this more on the Trek log when we get more information too. So, interesting story, interesting news. Jim Giannopoulos seems to be open to it because he's not very happy with.
Why not? Like you said.
Yeah.
What else do they have to lose at this point?
At this point, fuck it. Like I said, what have we got to lose?
You're a Queen fan, right, Rob?
Mama! Ooh! Yeah. Now I know the Freddie Mercury's estate 3 cents.
Well, that's fitting considering the name of the film we're talking about is called Bohemian Rhapsody. 20th Century Fox has told The Hollywood Reporter that Bryan Singer is no longer the director of Bohemian Rhapsody. That's right, he got canned. There was reports last week that he hadn't been showing up to work because he's sick, and now the latest rumor is that he has skipped out quite a bit and is stateside and did not come back after Thanksgiving break. The growing tension between the star Malik, who's playing Freddie Mercury, and Rami Malek, you might recognize from Mr. Robot, I believe the show it is he's on. According to the report, they had not been getting along. Another actor had left earlier due to headbutting with Singer, but came back. Sounds like the cinematographer Thomas Newton Sigel has been covering Singer's ass quite a bit. He claims, though, that he's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder because of tensions on the set.
Really? Post-traumatic stress disorder? Really? That's... okay, well, whatever. Okay, fine. All right.
Yeah, I don't get this. This makes no sense. Let's look at it different ways. One, Bryan Singer's just losing his mind and he's just being a prima donna dick. Or there's some legitimate issues he's having with the production and they're not listening to him. That's a good possibility as well.
Or in light of certain accusations, which we won't get into here, he was
right, and
kind of
three.
pushed out. So we're
not
going to get into those. That's a different podcast. So,
but the way this story is sounding, they're making it sound like he just wasn't showing up.
Could be.
It, of course, is being called unprofessional, which of course it is. He had a pay-or-play contract, and of course, Fox decided to get rid of him. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the stress may have to do with the accusations that you brought up, Rob. And like I said, we don't tend to try and get into that aspect of the business too much. I don't know if that played so much of a factor in this instance or not. And maybe he just felt like he couldn't tell the story he wanted to tell. I'm sure, especially considering the band wants it to be a PG or PG-13 family-friendly film, which we're not even going to get into at this moment in time. It just... This whole production just seems to have been cursed from the start, starting with losing Sacha Baron Cohen and all that going forward. But I'm sure we'll report more on this as it develops. I think it's about time we get into the roundup. What do you say, Rob?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, for the roundup. Yeehaw! Well, buckaroos, time to saddle up that horse and we're going to have ourselves a roundup. As you know, Paramount, we mentioned them before, they've been having some problems.
Quite often.
Oh, yeah. Publicity vet Kate Martin Kelly is leaving Paramount. And this comes to us from Variety. Publicity veteran Katie Martin Kelly is leaving Paramount Pictures at the end of the year. Variety has learned Kelly currently serves as executive president of domestic publicity. The decision to leave is said to be her own. Paramount has been undergoing a number of staffing changes since Jim Giannopoulos took over as studio chairman last spring from Brad Gray. Megan Colligan, the head of distribution and marketing, left the studio last month. A replacement has yet to be named. So, Katie Martin Kelly, Godspeed.
Not surprising. I don't think this is going to be an isolated incident.
So everybody's been clamoring for this Zack Snyder cut of Justice League that doesn't exist. But Rian Johnson, director of The Last Jedi, said his first cut of The Last Jedi, a movie that does exist, was over 3 hours long. And he talks about the deleted scenes. This comes to us from Collider. While Star Wars The Last Jedi will be the longest Star Wars movie at just a hair over 2.5 hours, the first cut of the film was considerably longer. Collider's own Steve Weintraub recently spoke with The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson at the press day for the upcoming sequel, and the filmmaker revealed that his initial cut of the film ran over 3 hours. Almost every film gets shortened during the editing process as the filmmaker fine-tunes the story and pacing, but The Last Jedi marks a noticeable case given that Star Wars fans want to pore over every single bit of footage available. Johnson noted that while The Last Jedi's final runtime is lengthy, the filmmaker knew this was always going to be a long movie ever since he put together the first cut. Johnson says, "We had a long movie from the start. It was well over 3 hours, the first cut. It's much better at 2.5 hours than it was at over 3. But it was cut. It was a cut I had to put together. Is where we started." Well, he doesn't really make a whole lot of sense there. And it was over 3 hours. I'm sorry, that I read that just as he said it. So
or at least how Collider printed
don't
it.
Blame
anyway.
me.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. We'll take a look at the guy working at Collider. Jeez.
Ooh.
Okay. Ooh, throw a little shade on Collider. Johnson goes on to say, "A lot of really good stuff came out in the edit. I actually just reviewed the deleted scenes we're going to have on the Blu-ray. There's a bunch of... Some of my favorite scenes ended up having to come out just structurally. There's a lot of really substantial, really good scenes. There's a couple of whole sequences that we lifted out. It's weirdly, and this always, it sounds like Donald Trump the way he says this. It's weirdly, and this always happens. It's like your babies you always have to kill." Oh, that's bad imagery.
I'm not sure if this is what he really said, because I swear I read a quote from him that was much more legible.
Again, this is Collider.
Campia doesn't work there anymore, but ooh.
Anyways, but he says the deleted scenes are some of his favorite stuff in the movie.
Sometimes that can be, but sometimes that shit is just frivolous and it does need to go. Coming from a little bit of an editing background, because that's kind of what I did go to school a little bit for. You're always going to take shit out. This is not a bad thing though. This tells me that the movie was pretty solid to begin with. Yeah. Because if they only cut out a half hour and it's still 2.5 hours long, that ain't nothing. A lot of that's just extensions of scenes, and like he said, maybe 2 or 3 full scenes.
Yeah. And another thing we have to remember is that longer is not necessarily better phrasing. But, yeah. Just because a movie is 3.5 hours long or 3 hours long doesn't mean it's some kind of epic masterpiece.
No.
Look at Heaven's Gate, like I said. So, Last Jedi opens on December 15th. Sneak advance previews are December 14th. Get in line now.
I will be there.
Yes, and hopefully I won't have a screaming toddler ruining my time either.
Oh, shit. All right, what else you got for us in the roundup?
Well, speaking of Star Wars, Daisy Ridley has clarified her comments about her future in Star Wars. This comes to us, I believe, from FlickeringMyth.com. Daisy Ridley says, "When I did sign up for 3 films, and that's where I sort of saw the story ending. I think everyone perhaps has taken that as me going, I don't want anything to do with it, which is vastly untrue because this is awesome." So, in other words, she's contractually obligated. She's probably willing to do another one, but she's got a contract.
I think her publicist got a nasty phone call from Disney.
Yeah. Go out and fix this. That's what they said.
What the fuck are you doing? You can't say that kind of stuff. Huh?
Daisy, go on, make a correction right now. So, well, we got a little television news. CBS has ordered more episodes of SWAT and Kevin Can Wait. Kevin Can Wait has gone up to 24 episodes, and SWAT is going up to 22 episodes. So if you're a fan of that show, good for you. You're gonna have more. We got some James Franco news, actually. James Franco is to direct and star in a film about artist Shel Silverstein for MWM Wonderland Sound. This comes to us from Deadline. His latest film, The Disaster Artist, squarely in the award season mix. James Franco is in talks to direct and star in another exploration of the life of an artist. He'll helm and star as the prolific children's book author and cartoonist and lyricist Shel Silverstein. The film will be written by Chris Schaefer and Paul Vicknair from Lisa Rogak's book, A Boy Named Shel, and focus on the personal and professional struggles that made Silverstein a unique voice.
How familiar are you with Shel Silverstein?
What did he write? I'm not sure.
Oh my goodness.
What did he write?
Well, he's most famous for his poetry books, such as Where the Sidewalk Ends and A Light in the Attic and The Giving Tree. But what people don't know about him is he wrote a ton of songs, and they're ones you know.
Really?
Most of which is A Boy Named Sue, which he wrote for Johnny Cash. And if you want to hear a funny fucking song, seek out Shel Silverstein, I Got Stoned and I Missed It. One of the funniest fucking songs you'll ever hear. I'm looking forward to this, and this is right up his alley. Because Shel Silverstein was a notorious stoner. And just a prolific songwriter, wrote a ton of Dr. Hook songs. I believe he wrote cover of the Rolling Stone. A hell of a character. And if he pulls off The Disaster Artist, I could see this as a perfect follow-up.
Our final story, we mentioned Quentin Tarantino before. Quentin Tarantino, his Manson-era film scores a release date. Quentin Tarantino's still untitled 9th film has a release date. The Pulp Fiction director, his latest, will hit theaters on August 9th, 2019, Variety has learned. Opening on the 50th anniversary of the day the Manson family committed the LaBianca murders and the day actress Sharon Tate was killed. The film will head off against Artemis Fowl, Disney's adaptation of the popular sci-fi fantasy series. So,
we actually have breaking news in the Bryan Singer story.
Yeah, right? This is breaking news.
This doesn't happen very often, doesn't it?
Never. This is the first.
Bryan Singer claims Fox refused to allow him to care for his gravely ill parents. So if this is true, this is obviously making Fox look bad. Here's what Bryan had to say. This comes from The Hollywood Reporter. Rumors that my unexpected departure from the film was sparked by a dispute I had with Rami Malek are not true. While at times we did have creative differences on the set, Rami and I successfully put those differences behind us, which is in the other report, and continued to work on the film together until just prior to Thanksgiving. I wanted nothing more than to be able to finish this project and to help honor the legacy of Freddie Mercury and Queen. But Fox would not permit me to do so because I needed to temporarily put my health and the health of my loved ones first. So, if this is true, that is kind of shitty of Fox, but then again, it does sound like there was a lot of unprofessional behavior on Singer's part. So as we do like to give you guys every angle here, I was glad that I caught that just before the show was done, so we do have that angle on this story as well. So it's an interesting development in that. Rob, you got anything to add to that before we finish up the show?
Not really. Like I said, it's pretty much speaks everything. Dateline Hollywood, that's about it. We never like to leave the show on a down note. We always like to leave the show on an up note, and to do that, we're gonna say happy birthday to a number of people. Actress Marissa Tomei.
Ooh, giggity.
Giggity. She turns 53, looking fabulous.
Aunt May I please?
Yes, Aunt May I please indeed. Actor Jeff Bridges from The Big Lebowski. Well, he was born on this day, December 4th, 1949. Late-night comedian Fred Armisen was born on this day. Actor Tony Todd. And now, in case you don't recognize...
The Candyman.
Yes, the Candyman. And has a Star Trek connection. Played Admiral Ramirez in Star Trek Axanar. Model Tyra Banks also was born this day. Actor Victor French from Highway to Heaven. Rap mogul Jay-Z. And celebrating birthdays tomorrow is Frankie Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle. Actress Paula Patton. You know her from, believe it or not, what do we know her from?
Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol.
Mission Impossible. And actually, she was in the Warcraft movie.
Oh, yes.
The late Walt Disney was born on December 5th, 1901.
Yeah.
Actress Morgan Brittany she was from on Dallas. She was also born on this day.
Nick Stahl from...
Yes. And...
Margaret Cho.
Margaret Cho. Oh, and actually Johnny Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls.
Oh.
Actually celebrates his birthday on December 5th.
Goo Goo Dolls has some pretty prominent music for film, man.
Yes. So, happy birthday. And if you're out there, you're celebrating birthday this week, happy birthday to you as well. And why not celebrate actually by subscribing? Yes, you can actually click the subscribe button and you can click the bell icon. That way you'll be notified of all the latest content that's uploaded. And if you really like the show, why not consider supporting us through Patreon? Patrons will get all kinds of goodies, won't they, Tom?
Oh, yes.
They'll
get early bonuses.
bonuses.
They get the complete unedited versions of plenty of the shows. That's just it. We try to give you guys everything we can before it goes up, and there's all kinds of stuff that never see on YouTube or anywhere else, so that's the place to see it, like the Making of the Edge documentaries, which are really popular.
Yes, Making of the Edge documentaries. You can find out how we all came together. And in my case, like I said, it was a dark night, and Andre found me
needle in one arm, hooker on the other.
Yes, but like I said, and if you don't have the means to subscribe to Patreon, please click the subscribe on YouTube button on YouTube. And share with all your friends. Share with anyone who think you enjoy this, because we cannot do this without you.
Yeah, YouTube has not been very kind lately.
Yes. So, once again, we'd like to say happy birthday to everyone. Wish happy birthday to anyone out there. And thank you for joining us. You are Mr.
Tom Comics. And you are?
I am Mr. Rob Robot Shlomo, your narrator supreme. This has been another episode of Midnight Edge After Dark, and we will catch you next time.